It's the home finale as the Beavers get set to host the Sun Devils. Corey Hall is still searching for his first win as interim head coach of the program, and they will need improved defense to do it. What he says about the changes he'll make this week. And we update you on the coaching search, tell you what they need to do to turn this program around. A brand new edition of Talkin Beavers starts now. Well, one final game at Reser this season as Oregon State squares off against Arizona State. Only 2 games remain on the schedule with the Civil War looming next week. Welcome into Talkin Beavers. Jason John-Baptiste, Amanda Maynard, Lindsay Schnell, Evanson Bernard with us. Still to come, a closer look at Arizona State, who has had kind of an equally unpredictable season so far this year. And we take a closer look at the coaching search, what we might expect, who might be available. I know certainly that's what everybody wants to talk about. But first, of course, the Beavers coming off a loss to Arizona in, unfortunately, blowout fashion. Is there any positives you can take from this one?
Yeah.
Anything?
It's
over?
I can't.
It's over.
That's over.
I was going to say they don't have to play him again.
Right?
It's over.
And then, honestly, I do, not to be a total Debbie Downer, but I was thinking, like, at least we're, like, one step closer to the season being over and to getting some resolution to figuring out who the new coach is. Because right now you're just in this weird limbo stage.
And the other thing, too, I mean, to be, quite frank, is that they got out clean. I mean, no one...
That's a good point.
Absolutely,
without any injuries. Because one of the things that has really happened, like, with this team is that they have had a ton of injuries. And secondary, with the quarterback, with the receivers. So, I mean, for them to get out clean, I mean, it's a positive right there. So I'd say that.
And they played a good second half. It's always been the first half, right? So you see them compete and continue to fight throughout that game in the second half. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, the running game was a lot better in the second half.
Well, Coach Hall had quite a few problems on defense that he saw. He said he was going to take a more hands-on approach against Arizona State this week. Let's take a listen.
We got to put our players in situations to where they feel comfortable and can get lined up and execute the details of their assignment. So when I was saying that, when you watch something like that, right, and you see it 2 weeks in a row, starting with Cal, and then you saw it kind of, again, manifest itself in Arizona, it's kind of very telling.
So it was Hall talking mostly about the weak side defense that he felt like Arizona was just able to exploit everything.
Right.
What did you see? Is that scheme? Is that coaching? Is that, what is that?
It's a little bit of everything. I think it's a little bit of coaching. I mean, you have to have the ability to have pursuit on the backside that can make so that you're able to make plays. But some of it, too, is, like, there's an X factor, particularly with Arizona. When you have an athlete such as Khalil Tate, even if you do have someone there on the backside to make a play, sometimes he just beats you.
Right.
Which is, in this play right here, which is exactly what he did. I mean, Dorian Smith was right there. He could have made the play, but he was faster. David Morris he tried to stop him on one play. He ran over David Morris. So, I mean, like, he was just a different kind of player. That being said, they do have issues with their weak side on defense. I mean, anytime they crash too hard. And I remember when I was playing, like, you always want to be on an angle so that if someone does cut back, that you're able to make that play on the backside, which is all you're really concerned with is the backside pursuit. This team has been having troubles with that the whole year.
Concerned about that against Arizona State as well? I mean,
absolutely.
I assume that's not a quick fix.
I mean, right now, right? Like, people know that this is their weakness.
Right.
So they're going to exploit it and attack it.
Yeah, and Arizona State has 2 running backs. They don't just have the one. I mean, they have Bailage and they have the other senior running back as well, too, both of which, Bailage is a little bit bigger, 6'3", 229. The other one is 5'10", 195. So a little bit different, but they definitely are both really equally good running backs.
So just 2 games left. 2 games left in the season. What do we expect from these last 2 weeks?
Well, I think that it's like what we said last week, just compete. Just be in it. I still think ASU is beatable. I know Oregon State has a lot of issues right now, but I'm not an ASU believer. They looked really good early and then absolutely came back down to earth. So who knows what's going to happen with them. They've had a weird situation. Todd Graham on the hot seat, not on the hot seat. And then I just think don't get caught looking ahead to the Civil War. That's another thing. So I just think compete.
Yeah, I think a pride thing, doing it for the seniors, right? These guys they've never gone to a bowl game. not a winning season.
That's so awful to think about.
It's tough. I think so. These last two games, the rest of the team, they have to play for the seniors, and I think the seniors too, right? They want to leave on a high note, so maybe they, they win like the last two like they did last year.
Yeah, my thing is that I'm not concerned so much like with their energy level. I think Coach Hall will get them energized just for the mere fact that this is their last home game. It's going to be senior day. Playing against a beatable opponent. My thing is that which team do we see? Do we see the team of the first half in Arizona and the team that struggled with Cal? Or do we go back to resort back to the team that played against Stanford and played against Colorado, Pearsley playing at home? So that's my thing. So if we see that team, the Colorado, and a team that played against Stanford, I think we could potentially see a win.
All right, a little later in the show, it is a showdown between Terry Baker and Brandon Cooks in our Damn Best bracket. And as the Beavers look to the future, what things should the new staff address right away? Well, welcome back. Here's a look at some of the competition the Beavers may, or we definitely know will face for coaching candidates. The openings so far: Florida, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Oregon State. The ones that might be open: Nebraska. We're going to be talking about Mike Riley's future a little later in the show. Texas A&M, UCLA, and the possibilities: Arizona State, Arkansas, and Washington State. More on the coaching search in our Les Schwab Quick Fix. So, guys, what is the Beavers' strategy here?
Well, I think you have to get someone who knows how to recruit in the Northwest. Lindsay's been one of the biggest advocates for that. Well, and what I mean by that is that you have to have the ability to recruit people that aren't necessarily in the Northwest. And that's what I mean by you have to be able to recruit in the Northwest, because you're going to have to get players that don't live in Oregon, right?
Sure.
I mean, in order to compete with some of these other universities, again, recruits from California, Washington, Hawaii, Texas, you have to be able to have the ability to do that as well. So
the big thing is, like, when do they want to make a hire? Okay, so we have 2 weeks left of the season, and then there's going to be conference championships. So what's hard is that maybe you have your eye on a coach whose team is still playing. They're not going to want to talk to you while they're in the middle of playing. So and then don't forget that we have early signing day for the first time this year. I believe it's December 10th. So that is also a big, component of this, because you're going to be able to come in and sign some kids right away. And right now, Oregon State does have some recruits. To me, I've said from the beginning that I think Bo Baldwin is the best hire for a lot of reasons. But man, if Washington State opens up, if Mike Leach leaves, like, why wouldn't Bo Baldwin, go there? Unless they just promoted Alex Grinch. But I think the most important thing to keep an eye on is what other Pac-12 schools come open, because that's who you're going to be recruiting against, right? So that's, if you are talking to a candidate and suddenly UCLA opens, which is probably going to happen, then maybe, UCLA is a more attractive job for a lot of reasons.
Right.
How do they, what's going to be the key for Scott Barnes to sell Oregon State with some of those Pac-12 openings, knowing, again, maybe you have an Arizona State, maybe you have a UCLA, maybe you have a Washington State? How can he win somebody away? Is that possible?
Well, I think, okay, here's what I think. You're probably going to be talking to someone who's married and has kids, and Corvallis is a great place to raise a family, right? That's huge. Also, they have invested in the program. They have this big, new, beautiful building. If you're willing to say, we will get the rest of the stadium done, I think that's huge.
Yeah, speaking about that, that's a good point. Obviously, the concerns, everyone are wondering, when's the West Side going to be done? Obviously, the football atmosphere, we just did the end zone too. So those are good things. If, as a coach, coming in, that for me, that sells. And obviously, I work at Oregon State University in the foundation, and one of the biggest projects, like I said, is the West Side. And I think a coach coming in knows that and is excited about that. And every coach likes to have a new toy, right?
Absolutely.
For Gary Anderson, that was the end zone. Yeah, it was the end zone for Gary Anderson.
So what do you two think? I mean, you both played there and were successful. What do you think the selling point is?
Yeah, you want to know one of the things that it was for me is that Oregon State was the only game in town.
That's a great point.
Like literally, you're not competing against a sports team. You're not competing against another university that's very close. I mean, Eugene is 45 minutes, so it's far enough away that
people aren't going to be fans.
And the fan base and everyone is super loyal.
Right.
So as a head coach coming in, knowing that you don't have to turn around this university and turn around this team within 1 or 2 years, like we're gonna give
They're in it for the long haul.
Right.
Yeah,
we're gonna give
the
you a long
pressure.
time to
Yeah.
do it. You know, when Mike Riley came, I mean, he could have, you know, he was here forever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Coach Erickson could have stayed forever had he not
totally.
jettisoned off to the 49ers. So, I mean, like, the loyalty, the ability of having the only game in town, that's a huge factor.
That's a great point. Like you talk about the length of time that coaches, you know, like Anderson, or not Anderson, but Riley and Erickson, they were here for a while. And I think for a coach coming in, they want to build a legacy, right? Like a Nick Saban kind of deal.
Yeah.
And Oregon State is one of those places that you can be one of those guys where we're going to give you a shot, right? You screw up a year, you know, we'll give you a year or two. And you can deal with that. And you know, I hate going back to this, but we want to go to bowl games, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, we're okay with going to, you know, being 7-5. We're excited about that. And so I think coming in as a coach, if you know you have kind of that comfort zone, it's a great job.
What Jason said makes me think of something that Brandon Cooks told me one time, and I think I've talked about this on here before. Cooks said that when he was, first of all, you know, he decided to go to Oregon State because they ran a better offense for him as opposed to UCLA where he was initially committed. But the bigger thing was, he said, you come here and this is a place where you can take care of business. There aren't a lot of distractions.
Right.
Everyone's going to be paying attention to you. You come here, and for him playing under Riley with an NFL playbook, he said, I'm going to get ready for the league here.
Yeah.
You can sell that to other people.
And you can start way earlier than going to USC or UCLA or
So true.
Washington.
There are minutes to be had here.
There is.
Well, we know that Jason isn't afraid to speak his mind. So we're trying out something new here today called Jason's Good, Bad, and Ugly.
Yes.
And we're getting his perspective on what is the good, bad, and ugly about what this coaching staff will be inheriting.
All right, so here we go. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, the good. Here's the good. We all know about the running backs, right? We started from the very beginning talking about the running backs and, you know, what we have in Tyner, and we also had, and also if they return, this is a big gift, if they return, whoever becomes the next coach will inherit the running backs, and that's the best part of this whole team is the running backs. Now you want to see what the bad is. The bad is the overall talent level of this team. The team just doesn't have the talent level that a lot of the other universities have. Going too deep with our talent isn't something that's really promising. But the ugly, here's what's even worse, is that you inherit a team that's 1-9 right now. Where are you going to have, you know, that morale? Where's that morale going to be? It's at an all-time low. So to me, I think, you know, you have the ugly where you have a team that has low morale, and then you have a low talent level. So it's going to be.
It can only go up, though, right?
It can only go up.
It can only go up.
Okay, I don't know. We've said that before, and then Gary Anderson quit.
Positivity.
That is
Positivity.
true. That is true. Real quick, what do you two feel like the staff needs to address right away?
I think you got to get some JUCO kids in, and it's really tough. You know, where did Craig Evans ever go?
Well, we will be
we're
talking
gonna
more
talk
about that,
later,
absolutely.
but I think that's the biggest thing is you got to get kids in that can play. If you can bring a grad transfer in or two, that would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you talk about the JUCO. Look what Erickson did, right? When he first got here, he brought a lot of JUCO guys in, and it changed real quick. And then it went fiesta, right? So I think JUCO is definitely the deal.
Hey,
All right, still to come. More pats on the back to come for this guy. But it's also senior day this weekend. We're going to get our panel's thoughts on what this senior class has meant to the program. And after the break, how long is Mike Riley sticking around in Nebraska? Our headline segment is up next. Standard TV and Appliance headlines with our veteran reporter, Lindsay Schnell of USA Today. And the first one, we're hoping for some progress for the basketball team, but maybe not seeing it quite yet.
2 steps forward, 1 step back, I think, Amanda. Okay, so the men are off to a 1-1 start. Opened with a big win over Southern Utah last week. You probably saw a particular crazy shot from Trace Tinkle. We're going to show that in a second. But look at this, 3-quarter. But last night,
I mean, just an incredible shot.
like, that's insane.
Three-quarter
And you know what is
buzzer
funny
beater
is that
at
that's the
half.
type of shot that coaches actually usually don't want you to take because all it does is ruin your three-point percentage.
Sure.
So anyway, so
Look.
Trace makes that shot. People all over are reacting to it. Big time. He had, this is his sister Jocelyn. They call him Buzz in their family. So Buzz at the buzzer. Trace finished with 24 points and 6 rebounds. Ethan Thompson made his college debut with 20 points the other night. But then Monday, they host Wyoming, and it did not go so well. They battled back from a halftime deficit to take a lead. And then the last 10 minutes of the game were very, very ugly. Wyoming finished the game on a 22-5 run, winning 75-66. Ethan Thompson was in foul trouble a lot. Trace was good again, of course, but they went 4 of 20 from 3. Rough night. However, they are back in action Saturday when they host Long Beach State and Gill at 8 p.m. So maybe you go to the football game and you hang around and watch the basketball game. Maybe they sweep. Maybe there's a state sweep this weekend.
Absolutely. Evanson is excited about that one. Now, number 2, Mike Riley. Everybody wants to know what his future is all about.
So earlier this season, just a few weeks ago, in fact, when Bill Moose, the former athletic director at Washington State, took the job at Nebraska, he said then that Coach Riley would finish the season. And then even after a 54-21 loss to Minnesota, which is, just so we're clear, not a great team, Moose told Mitch Sherman of ESPN.com, quote, "It's not like I've got a coach to hire this afternoon at 3:30. Mike Riley deserves to finish the 2017 season. That's how I operate," end quote. Riley, of course, is the winningest coach in Oregon State history, but he is also thought to be a sitting duck. Nebraska is 4-6. They are likely going to miss a bowl game for just the 3rd time since 1961.
Wow.
It's a really, really long time, you guys. So anyway, Riley is probably going to be available pretty soon.
Interesting. Coaching candidate, maybe? No?
He's still got a house in Corvallis, for what it's worth.
We won't start the speculation. All right, number 3. We've been following along with the volleyball team as they've been doing well, and I guess it continues.
The volleyball team, they are in the midst of another 3-game win streak. So impressive. After they went to Stanford, lost at Stanford, but then swept Cal in Arizona, finished up their swing through the desert with a 3-2 win over Arizona State, and now they're back in Gill to host Washington. Remember, just a few weeks ago, Oregon State upset Washington on the road in Seattle. Now the Huskies come into Gill, the number 10 ranked team in the country. It'll be a big, big, big game, and also, a big match, and with hopefully, 3 to 5 games that go in the Beavers' favor. OSU 19-9 overall, 9-7 in conference, and probably going to get a bid to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014.
That is awesome. Very exciting stuff. Okay, so if you've been with us throughout the season, you know that we are looking to crown the best player in Oregon State history in our damn best bracket. Today, we're getting down to our final 4, and here's a look back at how we got here.
When Nick was playing, there was a lot of time in the defensive front.
Are you including yourself in that?
I am including myself in that.
Just want to make sure.
And linebacking core, and he still was doing his thing.
Stephen Jackson versus Steve Corey.
Coach Corey is a legend here in Portland, and y'all did it to him like that? You put him against Stevie J?
We have Terry Baker versus Brandon Cooks. Who is winning this one?
There's only one player that's ever won the Heisman that's gone to the university, to Oregon State University, and that's Terry Baker.
In our Comcast Business Class Built for Performance, we are looking to crown the top performance in Oregon State football history in our damn best bracket. Again, we're getting down to the final 4 this week. We have the matchup of Terry Baker versus Brandon Cooks going on to face Stephen Jackson.
Come on. Come on now. Come on now.
5%. We know how Jason feels. You guys
see that image on the left? You see that image on the left? Hand out. You know what that means. You know what that means.
All right, so our next matchup is Anoke Brechterfield versus Bill Swancutt. Going on to face Nick Barnett. Who's going to win this one?
That's a tough one, man.
Shrek.
I got Shrek, a.k.a. Swanee. I played with Swanee, and obviously J-Bap has played with him. Great player, local kid, right? Salem guy, product, and lived up to all the hype that he came out of high school. But Anoke was great, too, and now he's coaching at Wisconsin D-line. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one.
Nah, come on. All right, tackles for loss, sacks, just let the stats tell you.
Stats are insane.
Should let you dictate who wins this one.
All right.
Swanee.
I was going for Swan, but you're right. That's a huge.
Yeah. I mean, you got to go with that.
All right. Well, you can vote on our Facebook page, facebook.com/NBCS Northwest. And when we come back, a look at the future as our analysts predict who may be the next superstar for the Beavers. And up next, what is the legacy of this senior class? One more game at Reser this season as the Beavers host Arizona State this weekend. Still to come, we'll break down the biggest challenges with the Sun Devils, plus who are the up-and-comers on the Beavers squad that you need to know about, and a recruiting update still ahead.
Flip back to Garrison, and then the home run shot to Villeman. 2 to 10. comes the underneath throw. Here's the deep shot off play, and it's intercepted. Nase Hungalu looking, taking a shot to the end zone. Touchdown! Jordan Villain. There's the middle, and there's a first down.
And we're handing out our Wilson Motor game balls to a handful of seniors on this roster as Senior Day approaches on Saturday. Here is a look at the outgoing seniors. Guys, who do you feel like has had the best career on this list?
Oh, I don't even think it's really all that close. I think Manasseh has had the best career as a senior for all that he did while he was there, even though, the teams weren't super, successful. He was one of the players that was a fixture. Everyone knew that he would show up, play well, and, he's proven it even this year, even with the down year that they've had.
Yeah, I think he set the standard defensively, been a team leader for a long time, and especially when you have a coaching change midway through your career, he was a kid that kind of rallied the troops and made sure everyone stayed together, continued to play hard, and just have a lot of respect for him for what he went through.
Consistent.
I was lucky to be there his freshman year as a GA. With Coach Rise last year, and
God, that was a long time ago, Ev.
no, seriously, I'm feeling old. But just to see the growth, I remember, I would run the scout team defense, and he would drive me crazy. He wouldn't do what was on the paper. I'd be like this, right? All right, guys. He would do something crazy. So to see him evolve and become a leader is really awesome, and it just shows you the growth from the freshman year to the senior and what it does for the impact it has on a kid's life.
Yeah.
Which of the seniors do you think has had the best when you look at that list?
Oh, Fred. I like Fred.
Okay.
He's a guy.
You're a running back, so of course you of course you're like offensive line. Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
I love Fred. I remember meeting him, his freshman year too, and just kind of seeing the growth. Always had a smile on his face. Knew all the coaches' names. Played hard. Obviously, he could play. He could play receiver.
Good hands. Yeah.
But he's just Mr. Dependent, man.
Moved all around on the line when they had problems at other points. He could play a lot of positions and always had a positive attitude. Going through a lot over this year especially, but over the last few years. And no, I have a lot of respect for him for what he did.
And I was one of my thoughts whenever I saw him was like he was the godfather of the Poly crew.
That's awesome.
And kind of being there for them and teaching them the ropes and stuff. So
that's really important.
Oregon State's really going to miss him.
I kind of made a joke off camera that I don't even know if I should even say. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter.
You're saying it now.
I'm saying it now. You know why I respect Fred? I respect him because he's only 21 catches away from being the leading receiver on the team. So,
the truth hurts, man.
I'm keeping it real.
Again, losing some interesting faces on offense. Jordan Villeman, Daryl Garrettson, Thomas
I'm sorry,
Snyder,
if we were to give a most disappointing award, it would go to Jordan Villeman.
All right.
Ouch.
And explain yourself. Explain yourself.
I love Billy.
Okay, I like Billy a lot too. He's an awesome kid, but that doesn't change the fact that he came in and never really did anything on the field.
I will say the quarterback changes, right?
That's a fair point.
Head coach changes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dealing with, off the field issues once in a while. So I think that all kind of played into the factor. I think he just needed someone that, someone else that kind of took him under the wing. I don't think he really had a guy like that.
I mean, he's physically imposing.
Exactly.
He's gonna get a shot.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens with him at the combine.
Yeah, I mean, because the fact of the matter is that, like, for someone that big and that athletic and have all those abilities, for you to only have 15 catches, and we're in game 10? I mean, come on.
And it wasn't good the last couple of years either.
What is the legacy of the senior class?
The inability to go to a bowl game. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. I mean, this is one of the first.
Again, you look at that record.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very tough. Very tough.
Unfortunately for them, and we've kind of touched on the subject a little bit, they've had a couple different coaching changes during that time. They weren't fully supported in the way that they could have been during the duration of their term and their time at OSU. So I feel really bad for them. But also the talent level is also not where it used to be either.
You're right on both those things. I will say this, though. If a new coach can come in, get this program turned around, get them back going to bowl games, that type of thing, there will be even more respect for this class that just kind of gutted it out when things were bad. So maybe this is just a transition period.
It's kind of like the group before the Fiesta Bowl team, right? That senior class that just missed out. They built that. They built that up. And then...
You see, but the difference you know, and we have yet to see, right? The difference between those players and these players is that there was always that mentality of being like, you know, I'm going to just grab my lunch pail, I'm going to lace up my boots and go to work. You know, these players, I'm hoping, you know, I'm not in the locker room with them, but I'm hoping they're instilling that same mentality. I know Manasseh has that mentality of, you know, no matter what the scoreboard says, we're gonna play, and you're gonna feel my wrath.
Right.
You know, so if they're instilling that within the locker room, then that's awesome because these next coming guys will, you know, have that competition and compete.
Well, a little later in the show, a closer look at Arizona State as Oregon State's going to face one of the top Pac-12 receivers. We'll discuss, and the stars of the future. We'll discuss what's next for the Oregon State football program.
Coach, I'm solid. You know, most of those conversations, that's what the opening remark was, Coach, are we good? Coach, I'm solid. You know, I committed to Oregon State football. And so moving forward, you don't have to worry about me, Coach. And so I was just like, oh, I'm not worried about you, baby. I'm just calling to check in and make sure everything is going, you know, as planned. And I just want you to know that everything's fine. You know, Beaver football is alive and kicking.
Well, despite an uncertain future, Corey Hall doing his best to recruit through it all. Here's a look at the recruits who are committed as of right now, mostly 3 stars, including Isaac Hodges' younger brother of freshman receiver Isaiah Hodges. And
Defensive
according
tackle,
to,
wow.
Yeah, and according to Twitter, Chad Johnson Jr., yes, he is that old, has been offered a scholarship.
Way to rub it in, Amanda.
I mean, we're all kind of in that boat, right? What do they need when you look at that list? What kind of positions are you hoping that they can hang on to?
DBs.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so defensively, so DBs. So one thing that's interesting, though, is like you think about, we don't know who they're going to hire. We don't know what they're going to run. That can dramatically change how things look. We were talking the other day about Ev brought up, they really need to have a downfield passing threat, which they don't right now. And I think Hodgins can, Isaiah, not his defensive tackle brother, can be that person going forward. But what if they bring in someone who runs the option? And you don't need receivers as much.
I honestly think they need everything. You know, the only thing
you know what they need are quarterbacks. They need a lot of quarterbacks.
They need quarterbacks. They need skill position players. They could use more receivers. You know, Villman is graduating. Hodgins is only a freshman, so he'll be a sophomore next year. But they could use some other receivers, some skill position players. Defensive backs, linebackers. Manasseh is graduating. D linemen. You know, I mean,
they just need depth.
They need depth. Yeah. So they need it all.
Yeah. And Corey Hall certainly seems to talk a good game. Are you confident in his ability to recruit through such an uncertain period?
Yeah, for him to have those recruits committed, and I think in the last 2 months they've gotten 4 or 5 guys to commit. That's impressive. Yeah. For a guy coming in not knowing the future of the program. So it just tells you the strength of Coach Hall in recruiting.
Again, lock him up early signing day. That's going to be huge to see which kids on those lists sign in December.
Yeah. So obviously junior college guys can, I mean, they can work out, but sometimes they don't.
Let's give you a long list of people who haven't worked out.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there, okay? Hey, listen.
So, I mean, it's obviously a quick fix.
Yeah.
What could or should be addressed with junior college guys?
Listen, you want to talk about quarterbacks. I think that would be one of the first places that you go to look for a quarterback is JC. Why? Because you have someone who's going to be mature, someone who's not necessarily played a D1 caliber football, but has played college ball. So you don't have to, teach them as much, more seasoned. And, Luton, I mean, like...
I like Luton. I like him. I think, honestly, I think you get the right system. I think he's more of a pro-style guy.
Totally.
Personally.
Absolutely.
Like you said, he's a Mike Riley kid.
Mike Riley would have loved him. They probably needed him at Nebraska this year, too. but, yeah, I think Luton's a great guy. I think, he gets the ball downfield, has a strong arm. So it just depends on what system we bring in.
Yeah. I think that, that goes back again to you really need quarterback depth, and that's something that a lot of programs are struggling with. I mean, look down the road at the Ducks, Herbert's named the starter. Their 2 other kids transfer out because they want to be the starter. Sure. Well, they could have been because then he broke his collarbone, and we saw that here. Imagine, if McMarion were still around when Luton would have got hurt, so I think that's the big thing is you just got to kind of stockpile guys at this point, especially in this conference. Quarterbacks get hurt a lot.
Yeah. So I'm going to name one quarterback JC transfer. Tell me if you remember if this name sounds familiar at all. Cam Newton.
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton is.
Did he transform that program or not?
Well, wasn't Aaron Rodgers? Was he at you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
See?
Good job, man.
Yeah, look at you. No, but I mean, if you find someone like that can come in, not saying that you could bring in Cam Newton.
Although,
You can always
didn't he
hope.
go to a junior college because he got kicked off the team?
Hey, listen,
Florida
we're
first?
just talking about.
Details.
Everyone deserves a second chance.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just saying, like he was like a rock star player.
You sound like a hater right now. You sound like a hater.
I think, but here's what's hard. And actually, I was going to ask you this. The thing with JUCO guys, if you talk to coaches, is they'll usually say, usually you get one good year out of them because it takes them a year to fully adjust. Did you feel that as a junior college guy?
I did. I mean, so I redshirted my first year because I
didn't know that, but that's huge.
Yeah. So, you still can redshirt. So you do have that additional year, so 3 to play 2, which I did. But yeah, I mean, like, you don't have the 4 years to play, so which is the reason why, like, they're seasoned.
Right.
So if they are, big enough and strong enough at that point in time, they're plug and plays for the vast majority of them. So that's what makes it a little bit easier.
If they can get eligible.
If they can get eligible. So.
Which obviously Craig Evans was not this year. We're going to talk more about the guys that they do have. We're breaking down which underclassmen could be the next superstar in our Best Foot Forward, brought to you by the Good Feet store. Evanston, who is going to be the next superstar?
I can't remember who I put, but
Jake Luton.
Jake Luton. I thought we talked about Jake
Which
already.
is perfect transition.
I'd love to talk about him.
Bring back the captain, right? Or he could be potentially. I think he should be the captain, but he is the leader of the offense.
Yeah.
I think he, came out early and strong. Obviously, the injury hurt him, set him back, but we saw flashes of him being a stud for Oregon State University.
So I want to know, again, as you look toward a new coaching staff, you don't know what they're going to run. How does that transition go with the quarterback? Because obviously that's your centerpiece.
Well,
That's
I maintain that I don't think there's any guarantee. Okay, first of all, I don't know if Jake Luton is ever going to be physically cleared to play football again. Yeah. But let's say that he is. I don't know that there's a lot gained from playing a senior if he's not going to be your guy, if you can bring in some other guys. So I don't know. It might just wind up being a really crappy situation for him.
Hopefully he can get medical red shirt, too.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right, Jason, who is your underclassman superstar?
So my superstar guy was actually kind of a superstar last year, not this year in particular, but Xavier Crawford. Here's a guy who was a freshman All-American last year, played really well, and then this year has the injury bug, and it's kind of affected his season. He hasn't lived up to the hype. So I think, he gets healthy next year. He's one of the most skilled players in that position right now at defensive back. So I think he comes back healthy and he returns back to form his freshman year.
Lindsay, what's yours?
Isaiah Hodgins, first of all, lots of excitement around him when he was recruited as a 4-star, got a really good pro body, has a dad that played. That's huge. He just understands the standard. But the biggest thing to me is he has so much experience this year. He was targeted a lot early, so they obviously saw a lot of good from him, but he's going to have an advantage when he's a junior if he should stick around to be as a senior. There's nothing like playing all those years. That was a big part of why Jordan Poyer was so good when he was a senior, is that he had played a lot as a freshman on special teams. Yeah. So Isaiah getting actual game experience outside of special teams will be huge, I think.
It's priceless.
Yeah, he lived up to the hype. I remember him coming in, and we were like, all right, and then he does what he does.
All right, still to come, a trip down memory lane to revisit one of Oregon State's biggest upsets in Corvallis, one that may have changed the course of Arizona State football.
We're trying to snap a losing streak here in 4 consecutive games. 40-yard line. Here comes the heat. Mannion had time, got him in, caught. Villiman. Touchdown Beavers. 2nd and 10. Kelly over the middle, picked off. He's picked off. This might do it. Beavers score. The doctor.
Well, in our Toyota Portland on Broadway tune-up, a look at ASU, who is returning to Corvallis for the first time since that epic upset in 2014. And the Beavers have had their number over the last 14 years. They've won 6 of 7 games. That only loss coming in 2005. And I believe somebody might have been a part of that loss team.
Yeah. We jumped out and they came right back.
Oh, man.
So a big thing about that 2014 game that maybe you can tell on the highlights and maybe you can is it was freezing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It
Yeah.
was so
They don't
cold.
like the cold weather.
Exactly. So it would help if temperatures dropped this weekend.
Well, you're coming off facing one of the nation's best dual threat quarterbacks. Now you have another one in Manny Wilkins. How would you describe how they compare? Obviously, Khalil Tate is insane right now, but what does Manny Wilkins present?
Manny Wilkins is a better passer than Khalil Tate is. He's much better with the ball. He's not. The one thing with Khalil Tate is that like he could turn the ball over a little bit. I mean, he's still young, still learning kind of thing. Manny Wilkins
A little more of a risk taker.
Exactly, more of a risk taker. Manny Wilkins does a better job of, reading the routes, reading, where his go-to players are and getting them the ball, his safety balls, if you will. So that's the one thing that, you're going to have to kind of get him off his spot and try to rush his throws and hopefully get him in a position that he doesn't want to be in. So
we're not the greatest at quarterbacks that run the ball well. So it's going to be a little bit scary, but also he can throw the ball too, right? So it's like double
doozy, double whammy.
To me, the big thing is they've been pretty balanced their last couple games, especially last week. They passed for, I think it was 294 and ran for 290. That's tough. I mean, you always want to stop the run, but that's if they can just kind of pick their poison every possession, that could get you in some trouble.
Well, and right now they're 5th in the Pac-12 in terms of total yards on offense. And a big reason for that is the emergence of their sophomore receiver in Keel Harry, who's just had a great season so far. Here's his teammates on what he brings.
When guys have success early and they come in, they're highly recruited like he was. He's one of the top receivers in the country. And then they make freshmen All-American. I talked to him about freshman All-Americans, not All-American, and he's capable of being All-Americans.
In every single game, no matter who we played, he was just big bodying people, and kind of just like basketball, boxing them out, and, he'll run you over, he'll run around you, he's quick, he's fast. He's consistent every day at practice, and he's been ready to play since he got here.
You get guys that are that talented, a lot of times you got to stay after him about working hard. He's a guy that really works hard on the football field.
So he is 16th in the country in terms of receiving yards, 2nd in the Pac-12 behind USC's Deontay Burnett. So 889 yards so far this season. His offensive coordinator calls him Secretariat. Strong and big. I guess he's 6'3", 230. So again, strong, big guy. What's going to make him a challenge for this team?
Well, the fact that he's so big. I mean, he's physically imposing. Oregon State doesn't really have a cornerback that could man up against him.
We saw Stanford.
They have a hard time. I mean, you could continually, get PIs against them.
I was going to say, just run the same play over and over again.
That's what they kept on doing against in that Stanford series. But, he's kind of scary because they don't really have anyone to stop him.
I was just thinking, I'm a Blitnikoff voter, and I actually sent in my ballot today for my 3 finalists, and I was thinking that there's not really, outside of James Washington at Oklahoma State, there's not really like a big-time stud receiver this year, and so it's like, maybe that means he's due for some sort of huge game. There's not someone in the Pac-12 that jumps out to me right away,
And that usually happens, according to Jason. Everybody that's due for a big game.
Right.
I was going to say this. She brought it up.
Against Oregon State.
Yeah.
He also has a passing touchdown, too. He's thrown a touchdown.
Oh, great.
I don't know if that makes you feel better, worse. Did you see any improvement from the secondary? Because they did get some guys back, some healthy bodies.
They didn't throw the ball last week.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That is true.
We don't know.
So, but yeah, I mean, Arizona didn't throw the ball. They had 534 yards rushing.
Sure. They don't need to throw the ball when you have that many yards.
I think Arizona State will throw the ball, especially if the weather is, good in good condition and it's not super cold. So they will throw the ball, and they could do it. I mean, they could throw that ball around. So.
All right. More to come, but right now we're getting you over to the OSU Beavers store.
Hey Beaver Nation, I'm Melanie. I'm here at the OSU Beaver Store campus location. It's starting to get cold outside. It's time for the beanie hat. I'm here in the women's section. We got a huge selection of colors and styles. We've got the new beaver head. We've got the Benny that I'm wearing. We've even got gloves that match. Come on in and find all these and more at the OSU Beaver Store. Fans start here.
Reser Stadium getting set to host Arizona State as the Sun Devils have had an up-and-down season as well. They had some highs, like beating Washington. You kind of forget about that one. Utah and Oregon, then falling short against UCLA last weekend. Of course, plenty of Beavers coverage coming your way each and every week. Check us out here on Go Beavs Friday nights at 11 p.m. Then, of course, we'll see you back here on Tuesday for another edition of Talking Beavers. So what do you anticipate this weekend will bring? Is this still a winnable game for them?
It is a winnable game. What's the line?
I can't bet.
None of us gamble. So 7 points, I think, maybe?
No, I definitely think it's a winnable game. You know, I thought that after Colorado and Stanford, my biggest takeaway was they're going to get someone. Yeah. They were playing so hard, and then they went on the road, and things were tough. But a lot of times when you go on the road, new staff, I think that was part of it. And then last week with Khalil Tate, you know, like I said, no one has really figured out how to bottle him up. But I think they could win this week or next week. I mean, they could. I don't know. They could win both. I'm not really an ASU believer.
Can. Obviously, like I said earlier in the show, I think last year they won the last 2 games. I think they're definitely thinking about that. Let's finish on a high note. And the offseason, when you go into offseason winning your last 2 games, that's huge. It's huge for a program.
Yeah, for morale.
I want to know if you beat the Ducks, does all of this get erased for next year?
No.
Yeah,
no,
it always does. Come on.
No, it doesn't.
Civil War.
Come on. No, it doesn't.
At least Beaver fans will be excited.
I so dislike when people say that because, maybe I'm uber competitive. So regardless of if they beat the Ducks, it doesn't. No, you don't forget about all those other losses.
You don't forget, but it's Civil War. That we will have bragging rights the entire offseason.
Yeah.
It's not going to erase things, but it will, like Ev said, give you huge momentum with a new staff.
Well, at least we beat you guys.
You're that bad.
Yeah.
All right, we will see you back here for Go Beavs on Friday night.